Bonsoir aux résidents et à toutes les personnes intéressées par l'avenir de la ville de Côte-Saint-Luc. Good evening, residents and all people interested in the future of the city of Côte-Saint-Luc. Thank you for attending this information session regarding the new planning program and revision of urban planning bylaws. Je m'appelle Tania Abramovich, je suis la directrice générale associée stratégie urbaine de la ville de Côte-Saint-Luc et je suis la modératrice de ce soir. Je vais présenter les intervenants et expliquer le déroulement de la séance. Our first goal tonight is to talk to you about what we heard during the extensive pre-consultations we held for this plan in 2022-2023. We've taken what you've said and have been plugging away at the document and bylaws since then, and while we've been very busy working on it, the production phase is fast coming to an end, and we want to loop the public back in for your continued participation. Le deuxième objectif est de vous tenir informés et à jour sur les plans et les règlements qui sont en train d'être mis à jour, sur l'échéancier, sur la manière dont vous pouvez contribuer. Patrick Awad, du service de l'urbanisme, vous en parlera. The third goal is really the exciting part that we want to share with you, which is the vision and orientations of the planning program itself, where Côte-Saint-Luc is going. La session est prévue de 19h à 21h. We will hear opening remarks by Mayor Brownstein and Deputy Mayor and Councillor Dita Burku, whose portfolio includes this master plan and urban planning bylaw revision process. Patrick and I will present, and after the presentations, we will open the floor for questions. Joining myself, Mayor Brownstein, Deputy Mayor Burku, and Mr. Awad are Urban Development Director Charles Senecal, and unfortunately, Urban Planning Coordinator Melanie Rothpan is absent due to illness, but she would have been here with us tonight. Nous vous demandons de rester respectueux de vos questions et les remarques dérogatoires ne seront pas tolérées. We ask that you remain respectful in your questions and derogatory remarks will not be tolerated. A video recording with this presentation will be posted this week at cotesaintluc.org/engage or cotesaintluc.org/contribuer. Je demande maintenant au maire Brownstein et à la conseillère Burku de faire des remarques introductives.
Bonsoir. I don't have any prepared remarks. I know Councillor Burku does. She is the person responsible for this file, the master plan. And I want to thank her, as well as Tanya Abramovich and Patrick, and particularly Darryl Levine, the people that have really worked hard on the master plan. Tonight is, first of all, I want to acknowledge Elizabeth Press. Thank you for being here, our M&A. Over there, Joe O'Turner from the English Montreal School Board. And of course, our counselors. We have Mitch Kajaski, Sidney Benizri, Lior Azarad, Mike Cohen, Andy Schuster. And then we have our group of Bialik students, the Mike Cohen troop. So what is this all about, really? I look at this as like an evening of vision and hope for a better Côte-Saint-Luc. We don't have specific plans in front of us or proposals in front of us. We just have a lot of great ideas. And what we want to do is have you as a community to help us make those ideas better. So my general philosophy in life is you wake up every day and you try to make it the best day you can, right? You make it the best day you can. And if it's not the best day, so you go to sleep and you reset and you make tomorrow a better day. But during that day, we have this opportunity tonight to try to make Côte-Saint-Luc a better place. And this evening is about that, about thinking what we can do to improve our city. Of course, improve our tax base and improve our social life, improve the offerings in terms of food and stores and housing and condos and apartments and the availability for people of different ages to be able to find housing in our city, whether it's bringing your mom and dad into the city, because everybody ends up in Côte-Saint-Luc eventually, or bringing young families into Côte-Saint-Luc and what they want and what they need. So really, I want you to see it as we are asking you today to give us your ideas and your input on what we should be focusing on to make the city better. And maintenant, je vais laisser la parole à le conseiller Dita Burko qui va faire le suivi et beaucoup d'informations. C'est une séance très intéressante, je pense. J'ai le regardé encore ce matin avec l'équipe et I hope you all enjoy it and that we learn from it and that we make it even better tomorrow and then the next day and the day after that. Because like I said, today's only one day, but it's a day where we're asking you to help us make this plan better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Dita Burko. I'm City Councilor, Deputy Mayor, responsable du dossier du plan d'urbanisme et de la mobilité, au nom du maire et des élus du conseil qui ont déjà été reconnus dans la salle. Je suis très heureuse de vous accueillir ici ce soir et je vais parler dans les deux langues, mais je comprends que la majorité est anglophone et donc je vais faire mes commentaires en majorité en anglais s'il n'y a pas de problème. Pour la première fois en 20 ans, la ville de Côte-Saint-Luc revoit complètement son programme d'urbanisme. Nous n'avons pas eu un nouveau plan depuis l'arrondissement de 2004. Okay? I was the borough councillor in 2004, and that's when we adopted the last master plan, 2004, pre-demerger, let's put it that way. Et la ville a fait beaucoup de chemin depuis. J'ai le privilège d'être la conseillère responsable du plan directeur et de la mobilité, and I always say the two together, because it's an urban mobility plan together, à un moment aussi passionnant de l'histoire de notre ville. As elected officials, and we have many in the room, we are stewards of this city and have a responsibility to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. This long-range plan, and it is a long-range plan, this is not a plan for tomorrow morning, it's a plan for 20 years from now. You got to see it that way. We're in 2024, got to look at 2040, 2045. This is where we're going. This long-range plan will be our roadmap. I commend the extensive work carried out by our urban planning team, and I'm proud of this planning program. There are many aspects of the master plan that will impact you as residents. Not only are we revamping the uses and zones, but for the entire city, but we're also revising over 7 bylaws, and Patrick will go more into detail, which will upgrade and update our way of life. And of course, we must synchronize our plan in harmony with our neighbors on the island and with the planning guidelines of the province and the region. There's a convergence of 3 things happening in this city right now. There's the agglomeration that's redoing, the City of Montreal is doing their master plans called Vision 2050. The agglomeration is going to also adopt a master plan in keeping with what they call the PMAD, which is the CMM. Anyway, all this will be explained to you, but there's a convergence now, and the 3 developers of the 3 malls also want to redevelop, so there's the timing is right. Not only are we revamping these maps, and of course we must synchronize our plan, like I said, with the province and the region. With this program and vision, we will be creating a more connected, resilient, safe, and age and family-friendly city. We'll also be adding great value to our tax base by generating more than $15 million annually citywide in extra taxes to pay for much-needed infrastructure. How many here want their roads fixed? How many want their pipes fixed? How many want their sidewalks fixed? We know the answer. Si nous voulons investir dans les services essentiels, comme les routes et le remplacement des conduites en plan, tout en maintenant un taux d'imposition raisonnable, nous devons augmenter notre capacité d'emprunt et pour ce faire, nous devons augmenter nos revenus. And there's no magic solution to increasing our revenues. There's only one major source, and that's tax revenues. The revitalization of the 3 large shopping centers, Cartier Cavendish, DeCarry Square, Côte-Saint-Luc Shopping Center, is vital to the future financial prosperity and sustainability of our city. And this increased local development will help us leverage what we need from the greater Montreal community. Let me explain. We must keep in mind that Côte-Saint-Luc is part of an agglomeration. We need to connect and integrate into the greater island community. Our roads, the trains that crisscross the city, the bus and rapid transit, the bike paths, the green corridors, these are all need to be connected to the greater island-wide network. Our master plan will allow us to increase the population density and add the critical mass of users that will justify the investment in these major services. As you know, we are dependent on higher levels of agencies that support these systems. So, je suis convaincue que pour obtenir la gare de train dans les nouveaux développements du Square des Carrés ou du centre commercial Côte-Saint-Luc, nous devons établir la clientèle qui fournira l'achalandage. Nous savons que le centre commercial Cavendish est littéralement 5 minutes du métro Namur. 5 minutes du métro Namur via la cour de triage. Et à 5 minutes de Saint-Laurent aussi. Le développement de nos centres commerciaux en quartiers dynamiques à usage mixte contribuera à faire avancer les options de mobilité pour l'avenir, y compris le raccordement du boulevard Cavendish. Donc, we did extensive public consultations, which will be explained to you, creating this plan, and the vision and orientations will take into consideration all that we've heard in the surveys and in all the activities we've done so far. I believe that we kept the heart of what makes this community great and so special and a great place to live. And I'm confident that it will become an even greater place to live in the years to come. Merci. Je vais passer la parole à Tanya Abramovich. Merci.
So we're going to be covering, I guess, the double W5 questions in this information session: the who, what, when, where, why, and of course, the how. So I'll just situate you so we're all on the same page in terms of what it is we're actually discussing. So we're going to be talking tonight about the planning program, which is also called the master plan, ou en français, le plan d'urbanisme. They are all exactly the same thing and can be used interchangeably. The master plan is a long-term big picture document that provides a vision for where we're going. It's a tool, but it's not a bylaw. It basically paints the portrait of what we're working towards. So in a picture it, Côte-Saint-Luc 2050 kind of way, that's what the master plan does. It covers the entire city, not just specific areas or redevelopments, and it's long-term, so for the next 20 years. A zoning bylaw is a bylaw that puts the plan into effect, stating the specific enforceable rules for how land can be used. It also tells you the range of heights that can be given in a given zone, the parking requirements, the density, and the setbacks. A zone is not the same thing as a lot. Your lot is in a zone, which allows for that volume and that density of a dwelling to be on it. When you have two different uses in the same zone, such as residential and commercial, that's called mixed use. The PIIA bylaw for site planning and integration sets out the rules for the buildings themselves, the framework for what they look like. I won't get into any of the other bylaws, it's not for this session, that's really for October 21st and November 20th. I just wanted to situate you for what is law and what is just a plan. So I gave you a bit of the what, and I want to discuss the reason why we're all here, the why. The legal why we're doing this is that every city is required to have an up-to-date planning program by law according to the LAU or the Act respecting land use and development. Le plan d'urbanisme actuellement en vigueur à Côte-Saint-Luc date de 2004, les années de fusion avec Montréal, lorsque nous faisions partie de l'arrondissement de Côte-Saint-Luc-Amsterdam-Montréal-Ouest. Drafted almost 20 years ago, it is very out of date. So much has changed in the world in 20 years. Les lois ont changé. Demographics have evolved and community needs along with it. La question du changement climatique est un enjeu au premier plan. There was a pandemic which forever altered the way we work and live and revealed social issues that we are still dealing with. There are housing affordability and mobility crises. Gen Z has come of age. Le pouvoir d'achat est en baisse. On a more local level, we have a fantastic opportunity in Côte-Saint-Luc, and we must take advantage of it. It is once in a generation when private capital wants to invest millions upon millions of dollars in a small city like Côte-Saint-Luc. This is our chance to dramatically improve our landscape and make it more interesting and modern. We're adding value to it, making it more walkable, plus excitant, plus amical et agréable. We're going to be creating a town center and other little mini centers around the city where the mall sites are. We're adding value. This is the difference between what there is now and what there could be in terms of value. The days of big windowless boxes in the middle of a huge parking lot will be gone, to be replaced by attractive areas with things to do. On top of that, there's the financial benefit. I don't have to tell you how we have a lot of infrastructure that's not good shape in Côte-Saint-Luc or how high your taxes are. The truth is that in order to fix the city first, while not raising taxes to do so, we need to get more value out of the land we have. What does it mean? It means square foot per square foot, a mall gives a certain amount in taxes. But build up the land, add buildings, a degree of density with mixed commercial and residential use, which attracts public transit, and you make that land more valuable. Le redéveloppement augmentera la viabilité financière de la ville et ajoutera environ 5 millions de dollars au budget chaque année par centre commercial. Redevelopment will increase the city's financial sustainability. Now, before we dive into the meat of the session, I wanted to talk about the spirit in which all of this was done. This plan, this vision, these bylaws do not come from strangers to this community. Certes, nous avons engagé des consultants pour nous aider dans la rédaction technique et la mise en page, mais l'essence de ce plan provient de vos propres voix collectives que nous avons recueillies lors des nombreux événements de consultation que nous avons organisés. It comes from the experiences we've had with you over the years. Every time you applied for permits, wanted to extend your homes, participated in programs, and built your life in this community. It comes from the aspirations you've expressed over time to council and staff alike. We even consulted with the staff from all departments at all levels to make sure we understood the daily challenges you face and what feedback they receive. Nous avons consulté des organismes partenaires de la communauté, des commissions scolaires et des communautés avoisinantes, des groupes comme le CIM et Urgence Santé, le CLSC et bien d'autres. In other words, we cast the net wide. Nous avons eu plusieurs plans d'urbanisme avant celui-ci, 1954, 1966, 1990 et 2000, mais aucun de nos plans précédents n'a été élaboré en consultant les résidents. This time, we did things differently, and we got your input before we started drafting a single word of this document, and this is why we call those the pre-consultations. We wanted to listen to as many different people in as many different ways as we could. In total, 2,342 people and 25 organizations participated in the pre-consultation events, which included 2 virtual information sessions, an open house, an online survey, public hearing, 4 interactive workshops, 6 staff consultations, 5 stakeholder meetings, and 4 focus groups. You can access both what we heard reports on the Cities Engage website. Elles doivent être considérées comme les parties 1 et 2 d'un processus de consultation globale. Notre équipe locale s'est investie à fond dans ce projet pour que vous, vos enfants et vos petits-enfants puissent vivre dans un meilleur Côte-Saint-Luc. Our aim was to hold true to the community's values with the redevelopments and planning program, but also bring the city into the 21st century and adapt to the realities of today's world. Think of it as an upgrade. We wanted to simplify our bylaws and make them more logical and understandable, because sometimes they're just not. To enable you to have more flexibility in your home so that they can evolve with you. We wanted to add choice to housing and mobility, to build up the city's resilience in the face of climate change and ensure its financial longevity. Nous voulions assurer votre sécurité et promouvoir le bien-être pour vous aider à prospérer. L'esprit ou l'essence de Côte-Saint-Luc demeure cependant, et nous l'avons toujours gardé à l'esprit en travaillant sur ce plan. What is this spirit of Côte-Saint-Luc that I'm speaking of? It's a village, a small town next to the big city, special and apart but connected. It's family-oriented, a great place to raise a family, an ideal place to grow up. It's age-friendly, caring place to get older and age in community. A city that focuses on the safety and well-being of its residents. It's Jewish-friendly and bilingual. It's a suburb. It's a quiet bedroom community. and that is not going to be lost. Residents said many, many things in these pre-consultations, so I'll boil them down to the most important themes, these overarching themes. The first thing is that connectivity is extremely important. The need for more access and entry points into the city was mentioned over and over and over again for a variety of different reasons. Many people want the Cavendish extension, or at least to create alternate ways in and out of the city and better connect with the rest of the island. Bien qu'elle ne soit pas universelle, la tendance à vouloir ouvrir Côte-Saint-Luc est omniprésente. This has as much to do with infrastructure as better public transit and opportunities for safe and connected active transit. The next theme is that people want to have a life in Côte-Saint-Luc and connect socially. People told us they want to go out to eat, be entertained, and most of all, have a place to socialize within the city itself without being forced to leave every single time. Les gens voulaient surtout des restaurants et des cafés, mais aussi des activités à l'intérieur et à l'extérieur pour des adultes comme pour les familles. This relates to the redevelopments, but also to public space throughout the city. Next theme, l'importance de la sécurité ne peut être surestimée. Safety and security came up as a major preoccupation for our residents. It was mentioned in numerous contexts for the vision of Côte-Saint-Luc, cited as a characteristic people appreciate about the city, but always want more of. Les gens veulent se sentir en sécurité. The next theme is that public space is regarded as an essential element of the master plan. A significant number of people expressed the desire for more green spaces, more parks, more outdoor gathering areas. Il s'agit avant tout d'un désir d'entrer en contact avec les autres personnes, mais aussi d'entrer en contact avec la nature et d'y être. The quality, quantity, variety, and accessibility of public space emerged as something that must form a core part of the city and vision for it. The next theme, during the pre-consultations, so many people said that before anything new, thank you very much, please fix the city and bring up to standard are things like our road and sidewalk networks and our pipes. As I said earlier, at the rate we're going, it'll take decades for us to do this, at the rate we're going. The last overarching theme is that affordability must always be considered. People want homes they could afford, shops and restaurants that are not too expensive, programs they could easily access, and free and open public spaces. I urge you to look at these reports in more detail, côte-saint-luc.org/engage or côte-saint-luc.org/contribuer. Je vais maintenant passer le micro à mon collègue Patrick pour qu'il vous parle de la vision et des orientations du processus et des prochaines étapes et de la manière dont vous pouvez participer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick. I work in the urban planning department here at the city. As Tanya touched upon a bit earlier, the province's Act respecting land use planning and development requires cities to maintain a planning program up to date and to monitor the achievement of its goals and objectives. But what exactly is a planning program? Essentially, it's a fundamental tool for a municipality in terms of long-term planning over a time span of approximately 15 to 25 years, as mentioned by Tanya and by Dita. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing defines it as a strategic planning document that establishes the guidelines for spatial and physical organization of a municipality, while also presenting an overall vision for the development of the territory. So for cities that have a lot of land and space to develop, this definition is pretty consistent. However, for Côte-Saint-Luc, with its fully developed territory, this definition translates more into redevelopment and retrofitting existing development moving forward. The planning program enables the council to draw up a portrait of the territory, to identify issues and opportunities, to guide decision-making, and to propose strategies, actions, and especially targets. Our city is mature, and we must take care to preserve its image and its unique identity. The planning program's vision will enable us to fine-tune the existing and to take advantage of strategic areas across the city through their careful redevelopment. Where we're at in the process, this whole process began with the pre-consultation activities that took place in 2022 and 2023. Once we finished compiling everything we heard and shared the reports, we hired a consultant to accompany us in the drafting of our new planning program and bylaws. We then began defining our vision and guiding principles, which would then translate into more tangible objectives, as well as the action plan that's necessary to achieve them. Some examples of these actions are to implement new policies, to amend or to update our bylaws, or to build new infrastructure, among other things. Once the planning program and its action plan were completed, we moved on to the revision of our urban planning bylaws, which we are on the verge of finalizing at the moment. Today, we're informing you of our progress and giving you a sneak peek of the vision and some of the proposed actions. We will go into much further detail at the official public consultation on November 20th, which we also invite you to attend. There are other ways to engage with us, which I'll explain later in the presentation. So before we dive into the vision, and because it can sometimes be too technical or confusing for people, we wanted to tell you a bit about what's in it for you. Once deployed, the planning program will have plenty to offer to residents, visitors, and workers alike. It'll create lively, walkable gathering places where you can shop, dine, and socialize. It'll create more and better green spaces as well as trees, less urban heat islands. It'll also supply a wider range of housing types, including affordable and family-sized units. It will offer safer pathways for walking, cycling, rollerblading, scootering, etc. It will also allow more flexibility for your homes to evolve according to your lifestyle and your families. It will promote universal design and accessibility, and it will also result in increased tax base and increased value from land. Now for the vision, in the heart of the island, Côte Saint-Luc is a connected, safe, and resilient community where all generations can thrive and partake in vibrant public and commercial spaces, enjoying a range of viable housing options and mobility options. Now we'll dive into the goals, objectives, and strategies that stem from this vision. The first goal is to promote connectivity and permeability of the territory, and the means by which we propose to achieve this are by creating links between Côte Saint-Luc neighborhoods and with neighboring cities. So for example, by opening train stations at Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Centre and at Decarie Square, as mentioned by Councillor Burku, and other interventions such as building overpasses for pedestrians and cyclists at Parkhaven and also at Glenreynolds. By making active mobility and public transit safer, more appealing and convenient, by, for example, protected bike paths and weatherproof bus shelters, by creating mobility hubs at strategic locations. Mobility hubs are when you concentrate different modes of transportation in one same location. So for example, at a bus stop, if you miss the bus, you also have a car sharing option or a bike sharing option or other modes of transportation. Sometimes those include public transit. And to link parks and open spaces to create an active mobility network. The second goal is to encourage mixed-use development and to improve existing commercial areas. By taking advantage of redevelopment to create denser and complete neighborhoods, by creating conditions to diversify retail and commerce, particularly along Westminster, by consolidating the central area into a dynamic and attractive town center, the aim for the town center is to create a vibrant and attractive area that encompasses the Quartier Cavendish redevelopment, as well as the City Hall and Library Complex and Pierre Elliott Trudeau Park. So the idea is that the city is a place, the heart of the city, is a place that our residents go to for their everyday needs and to gather and socialize without necessarily having to leave Côte Saint-Luc. In the public consultations, we heard a lot that many people go out to Monkland Village or other areas in Montreal to dine, to get coffee, or socialize, mostly because they don't have similar options in Côte Saint-Luc. So what we want to do is provide an area where Côte Saint-Luc residents can socialize without having to leave. The third goal is to balance and diversify public spaces and facilities. So for example, by designing accessible parks and public spaces that are suited to the needs of the population, by ensuring an adequate supply of parks, green spaces, sports fields, and equipment. The fourth goal is to promote responsible environmental management and climate resilience by implementing sustainable green infrastructure to protect ecosystems, support biodiversity, and resilience in the face of climate change, by implementing policies and measures to adapt land, buildings, and infrastructures, and also to reduce the heat island effect. The fifth goal is to support community cohesion, and doing so by continuing to support local and community initiatives, capitalizing on the city's rich cultural communities and the development of programs, amenities, and activities, by ensuring a supply of affordable and family housing to supplement the existing stock that is already in Côte Saint-Luc, by encouraging citizen participation in land use planning. The sixth goal is to prioritize safety and well-being by making infrastructure and public spaces safer, more accessible, and adapted to needs, by promoting mental and physical health by creating accessible green spaces, relaxation areas, and facilities for sports and recreation, and by creating spaces that reduce social isolation and enable aging in place. The seventh and last goal is to ensure quality urban design and human scale developments. For example, by promoting harmonious framing of streets and open spaces, by achieving architectural integration through careful arrangement and modulation of heights, by overseeing the quality and character of the built environment by proposing clear norms and guidelines, and by promoting innovative and distinctive architecture. So here are some examples of how we can ensure human scale and thoughtful density so that it benefits the community in many ways. The first example is the gradation of building heights in consciousness with the surrounding existing development. So as you can see on the images on the slide, we take into account the surrounding height of the buildings and we grade the heights accordingly across the site. Setbacks and podiums that allow sunlight onto the street and public realm and shelter from harsh weather such as wind and rain. Animated storefronts that offer a pleasant walking experiences and places to eat and drink, and shorter walking distances due to underground parking and vertical mixed uses. We just talked about the vision and the goals for the planning program, but in reality, as Tanya touched upon, the means by which these actions translate into buildings and infrastructure are through bylaws. In order for all of these things to happen, here's a list of the different bylaws that will be adopted in the near future, and those that will be adjusted. So the first is a zoning bylaw, which deals with where things can be located, where different uses can be located, how high buildings can go, the setbacks from the street, etc. Also a subdivision bylaw, which will replace the existing one, just like the zoning bylaw. Subdivision bylaw deals with how land parcels are subdivided, including the width of streets and not only just parcels of land that buildings are on. There will also be a bylaw on site planning and architectural integration programs that deals with the appearance and architecture of buildings. There will be a permits and certificates bylaw that explains clearly what documents and information is required in order to get different kinds of permits and what types of permits exist in the city of Côte Saint-Luc. There will also be a bylaw to improve the supply of social, affordable, and family housing in the new redevelopments. There will also be several existing bylaws that will be basically adjusted to take into account the different changes in the other bylaws, such as the construction bylaw, the demolition bylaw, and the waste management bylaw. In terms of the process, here are the steps that we've already completed, and those we're on the verge of completed, a lot of which we've already spoken about. Now for the steps to come, there is the adoption, on October 21st, the Council will present and adopt the first drafts of the planning program and the bylaws we've just discussed. As of this date, those documents will be available for your review on the Engage website or in person at City Hall. On November 20th, there will be the official public consultation on the first drafts, during which a presentation will be given and you'll be able to ask your questions and share your concerns on what you've read. After this public consultation, there will be a period during which the city will review all of the feedback received from the public and make adjustments to these documents where necessary. Once the city has finalized these adjustments, the council will adopt second drafts, which could be followed by a registry process if the citizens deem it necessary. Then the Montreal agglomeration will review our bylaws for compliance examinations. There is also a possible examination by the Quebec Municipal Commission if citizens deem it necessary. Once these examinations are completed, the planning program and bylaws will come into effect as soon as the city receives the certificates from the agglomeration. There are several ways you can participate and contribute. The first is by participating in today's information session and the presentation and adoption of the first drafts on October 21st. You can also visit the Côte Saint-Luc Engage website, which is on the slide behind me. By reading the documents, sharing your thoughts and questions, and bringing those questions and thoughts to the public consultation on November 20th. And by contacting the team in charge of the planning program, which are Tanya, myself, Melanie, who is absent today, and Charles, my colleague. And I'll pass it back to Tanya.
Thank you, Patrick. I just want to reinforce one particular point before we go into the question part of this information session. Things aren't going to happen overnight. So even if we discuss tonight here, we're past tomorrow and magic wands were waved and everything passed, it's really going to take years for all this to unfold, right? If you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have construction in the next 2 years. No, you probably won't. So just keep in mind, it unfurls. Urban planning is slow. I'll now open up the floor to questions. Please try to keep them short and to the point to enable everyone to get a turn to speak. The microphone is in the middle. Please use the microphone because we are recording this and it helps us have better sound for people who are viewing at home. So this video will be posted probably later this week, I would say. Okay, so questions. You're open the floor. We're going till 9 o'clock. Come to the microphone. I invite you.
My name is Alan Schneiderman. I've lived here since 1979. My question is, since this is a government requirement process, the long-term planning,
Yeah.
what was the previous plan and what items or visions that were foreseen at the time not implemented?
So I will ignore the borough one for a second because it's bigger than what it was. So the plan before that was from 2000.
Okay.
And in it, for example, they were foreseeing the rapid increase of building of senior homes.
Okay.
Okay, so that is something that not only didn't take place, in fact, several have closed, as you know, in the last, let's say, 10 years. So that's something. It was really, if you read it, like, we can't find the 1954 one. The 1966 one, they wanted to put hovercrafts in the CP yards. There were some wild ideas, right? They were going to have, like, it was before Districts 2 and 8 were developed. So that one, some things came to be. Those obviously, we are sitting in District 2. They moved City Hall to the center of town. And then we had nothing from 66, so a huge chunk of the time you were here, until 1990. 1990, it's a tiny, tiny, twinky little document. There's not much in that one, or 2000. So except for the senior home, which is the thing that stands out, it was really, there wasn't a huge amount in it. This is the first really substantial one since 1966.
Can I just ask a
Sure.
sort of...
And you can find them on our website, all the old ones that we have.
Okay. The other thing is, from a business perspective,
Yeah.
most plans are much shorter in term.
Yeah.
So, but if you're implementing a vision of 20 years, do you have incremental plans of 3, 6, or something like that? Will that be part of this process so that we have an idea, in 3 years, this is what we hope to achieve, and so on and so forth?
So I'll speak, we'll start with the mall redevelopments, because those we have developers who want to develop, right? They want to. So what,
make money.
Let's say it pass, they'll do it. They'll do
Well,
it.
they do.
I have one in the house.
No, they do.
So basically, first of all, whatever they do will be in phases. It won't be like overnight. They obviously have to have a market for what they're doing, right? In order to build anything, they need to get, if they're demolishing, demolition permit. They need to show a plan. Every building and every single part of their plan has to get approved. So even if it was, we think it's spectacular, it passes all the things, it will still take a few years. So I would say that because there are developers, some changes will be quicker than others. So development takes a few years. Some of them, there are no developers for. We just have a different vision for, like, things on Westminster, for example. There is no developer that has any ideas yet. So it's like they will just know, for example, that this is something the city has as a vision. So that could take 15 years or whatever. It depends what. Are they opening up Cavendish tomorrow? I have no control when that
That's
occurs.
correct. You don't.
But so it depends is the answer.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're saying a lot depends on third parties' ability to help you make that vision happen?
Go on for complete my answer.
Yeah, if I may add, so aside from the private side of this whole thing, the city is obligated to monitor the targets it sets. You'll see in the coming weeks when we diffuse the master plan document, there's a part, like a chapter called mise en œuvre. What is that in French, in English? Yeah, the implementation of the master plan. So that chapter basically explains the time frame or the targets that the city sets and how long the city is giving itself to achieve those. So it is our job as a municipality, 5 years down the road, if we set a 5-year target, to make sure that we each achieved it, and if we haven't, what can we do to achieve it like faster or in a time frame that does not exceed 5 years too much, for example.
Right.
So it's an obligation as part of the.
And just one last thing, the visions that you saw or that you indicated, they weren't numbered. So were they in a priority sequence or not?
Oh, they were numbered.
I
The
didn't see it as a
orientations
number.
the orientations and the
Okay.
actions.
No, those aren't numbered there.
So
Where? Oh,
the
there's
goal.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually didn't see it.
So,
back
for
there. I was
example,
looking at the actual
The goal is the
items.
title of the slide. So it's
Okay.
the goal number 6, and then you can imagine that
And you have
the ones that
several.
it's like
Okay,
6.1, 6.2,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
so
thank you.
October 21st is when all the documents get birthed and when you could peruse them. The planning program, the PPU, which is the plan for Central Côte Saint-Luc, are highly readable, very visual, and you're like, oh, I can get into this. The zoning bylaw is a little less interesting as reading, let's just say. So you may not want to sit down with a cup of coffee with that one, but I mean, you could if you wanted to. But so it's some of them are more readable than others, let's just say. But that's why we're going to walk, like October 21st, we're going to walk you through like some of the major differences because some things are different, and there's so many. I want to say we've had like people who have had projects in our city where you know a lot of process that you had to go through to get, let's say, the extension on your homes. Things will get easier on some level because we've listened to you. So go ahead.
Hi, my name's Alex. Unlike the past president, I've only been here for 2 years. Young family over here. My question is, it's a little bit of my concern is, when you were doing this plan, how much did you consult or talk with the City of Montreal? I know they're coming up with their 2025 plan too. Bit of my worry is, since we're in the middle of everything, we can have nice plans and everything, and then the City of Montreal, pops up with a hippodrome plan that doesn't regard us at all. So I just want to know a bit, how much did you guys deal with the other public agencies? How much were they involved in the plan? And is it going to be something that's going to come out all at the same time, or whatnot?
So I'll start the answer and you'll probably want to finish it, is my guess. So first of all, from a partner point of view, in our pre-consultations, we had the City of Montreal, every neighboring city, including boroughs of NDG. We had Commission Scolaire, we had the EMSB, we had SIMS, SPVM, like we had everybody who could touch a smell a thing. They were in these consultations. And we learned a lot of things, like tricky things, like, oh, the kids who live in Côte Saint-Luc who will live, let's say, at Décarie Square can't go to the school in the Hippodrome because it's a different school board, and various tricky things like that we're going to need to figure out, right? So that's one thing. Then, simultaneous with this, we've been in nonstop discussions with Montreal over and over and over again. So the Namur Hippodrome team, because we ultimately they have to approve our stuff. So we want to make sure they will. So we have orientations. This part you should probably talk about the CMM and stuff, because I'll leave him to answer this part because it's.
So not only in the spirit of collaboration, but we also have obligations to respect. So between the City of Côte Saint-Luc and the provincial government, there's a lot of different layers. There's a regional administration, which is the CMM, Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal, and that covers 83 municipalities.
Yep.
82 municipalities that are on the Couronne Nord, what we call island of Montreal, Laval, and Couronne Sud. So that's a regional administration, and the island of Montreal, which is the agglomeration also. This is a separate administration. Their plans have to conform with the plans made by the CMM, which is the regional body, and ours as a local municipality have to respect the agglomerations. So there's like a whole set of things that need to be respected, and there are parameters that we need to comply with by obligation to the law. So we have to comply with the agglomeration plan. The agglomeration plan has to comply with the CMM's plan. So all of those documents are currently being revised in the next 2 to 3 year period. Including our own. So it was a good timing for us to do this exercise, because there's a lot that we don't just have to read and be like, okay, we need to do this. There's a lot of negotiations going on. So we've been in meetings on a very regular basis with all of those bodies.
Yeah, and just to add, the CMM document, so the CMM PMAD 2, let's call it, is in its second draft version, which we've seen and commented on the first one. So that we will conform to because we know exactly what's in it. Montreal just released the PRUM, which is nothing, it's not the AGLO document, just to be clear. The schema is still to come, but the PRUM document, which is 1,200 pages if you feel like flipping through it, which I did, is you could see where they're going, right? We're not going exactly like we're not them, but we know what's in it. We know where they're going. We have very good ideas of what's going to be in the schema. So we're not going to do something and they'll be like, no, you can't do this. We're good. We're good.
Just a point of clarity, for the conformity and all that, that's not going to be released in October 21st. That's going to come after, right?
What do you mean by the conformity?
I remember you said conforming to the agglomeration and the plans that's following. So what's released on October, it's not necessarily what's going to be the finalized version because that's supposed to be other
No, that's draft one.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just go back to this slide. So as you can see, we adopt first drafts, then there's a public consultation, then we adjust the drafts. Then after the adoption of the second draft is when the agglomeration has a period of 120 days to review our documentation. But they already know a lot of that, the content of it, because we've been in discussions with them. So it's not going to be a surprise to them when they get those documents. So a lot of the things they're already aware of, and it'll speed up those 120 days, hopefully, until they give us their compliance examination. Yeah.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Who's next? Hi.
Joe Ortona, Chair of the English Montreal School Board. Just a quick question. First of all, we've always worked well with the City of Côte-Saint-Luc in sharing of our spaces, and there's always been collaboration with that, and I look forward to continuing with that. One of the things you mentioned in the presentation this evening was attracting public transit.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me thinking, and I just wanted to ask, is there anything in the plan that would have an impact or be beneficial for our schools? And if we know of that, if you can elaborate on that.
The short answer is yes. So one of the things that we have several schools on our territory, many private, one public English, 2 public French. One of the things that we would benefit schools, nearby, the public transit is just the bike paths. Like one of the things you realize is that all around the schools, there's skinny little sidewalks and everybody drives their kids. I don't have to tell anyone about the traffic around schools in the morning because walking is not enticing, biking is not enticing, people don't feel it's safe. So any active transit ways of getting to all the schools, like those are the priority places because that's where people always have to do drop-offs. In addition to all the public spaces around schools, which we have all over the place. So, I mean, even in terms of like when we say age-friendly, people think of seniors, but it's also kid-friendly places because whatever is good for your grandmother is also good for your 8-year-old, right? Like it's just, so the short answer is that we still, like our schools, we consulted with the EMSB and the other schools because we need to know what their issues are. And one of the other thing that came out is there's a lot of social issues that are going on with families, a lot of immigrant families who come from trauma that they have to help deal with. And we know that this is an ongoing issue in the schools in our territory, particularly the public schools. So we're aware of this and we are trying to work with the organizations, including the SPVM, that deal with that to ensure success.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Rosie. Firstly, thank you so much for the great presentation and the history. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name's Rosie. I'll repeat again. Thank you for the great presentation and for the history and such, and also for consulting with the public before moving forward with this master plan. I'm just wondering, because I'm hearing the word Westminster a lot, as I'm sure the group is aware, year ago, maybe just over a year ago this month, a bunch of residents in a tiny area specifically went against the change of a bylaw for the Jardin Westminster lot.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how much that's taken into account for this master plan and how that impacts us.
Okay, so first of all, we considered, I'm highly familiar with that whole episode in the Côte Saint-Luc history. So when we talk about Westminster, we really mean Westminster from bottom to top, first of all, okay? So when we did a whole consultation just on Westminster corridor, because unlike the malls, which are, you know, ready-made neighborhoods, Westminster, which in Mo West is this delightful, you know, main street, ours kind of is missing spicy anything, right? So we divided it into the area south of Underpass, then the area between Underpass and Mackle, and then the north of Mackle. So for the north of Mackle, yes, we definitely know what the residents will not, we're not trying to like slip in, you know, what we were going to do that way or not do that way, right? So it's certainly the project at hand, like we will be rezoning that area, but it's not going to be what you have seen. Let's just put it that way, as it stands. It will not be that project because we're not going to not do it and then shove it in a master plan and then do it. Because that's not right. So that's one thing. But along Westminster, for example, let's say the southern part, there are some grunchy areas, let's call them, that if they were different could be way better, right? It's not, you know, like you have a short TD bank. It's zoned one floor, little tiny box TD. It could be more, it could be better. So it's sort of the vision for Westminster is that from bottom to top, it is a more interesting place going all the way up. That's where we're going with our Westminster thoughts. It's not just about shopping.
Sure. And I'm sure that we're going to know more on October 21st when the paperwork becomes more available. I'm also just wondering in terms of, obviously these changes aren't set in stone. They're still, I'm assuming, a little bit malleable and that the citizens of Côte Saint-Luc still have a say. I'm just wondering, in the case of the Westminster lot, it was very limited to who had a say on it. In fact, it was only about within a 3-block radius that had a say for it, despite the fact that people all the way in Blossom were also against the project. They weren't allowed to vote. Actually, one of the funniest parts was for the street of Smart. Only those on the east side of Smart were allowed to vote for or against the project, whereas those on the west side of Smart had no say. So I'm just wondering, considering this is now part of the master plan, when it comes to these decisions or change of bylaws that are implicated by the master plan, is it going to be the whole city that has the vote? So if someone's against, not someone, but if the residents of a specific area are against a specific movement, is it just those residents, or you're going to have to get the entire city of Côte Saint-Luc to go against it?
So you can finish my answer because it's going to be partial, and then you could finish it. So everything is citywide, right? Because these are documents that apply citywide. If there's a registry, on the form you get for the legal department, it says, what are you protesting, right? So if you don't care about that thing, the whole body of this, it's really this thing you care about, that is the thing you put. This, I don't like this part. So you get to specify exactly what the problem is for you.
Yeah, Tanya touched upon it in the beginning of her sentence, but essentially because it's a citywide, it's a citywide reflection, it's a big picture exercise, it applies to the whole city, so the whole city is entitled to speak about this whole exercise. However, in the case of a referendum approval, that can only be done for the zoning bylaw, logically, because that's the one that says where things can and can't go. The other bylaws, there will be a public consultation where you'll be able to speak just like you're doing right now, and people can agree, disagree with you. It's going to be an open dialogue, but you can't really vote on, for example, the PIA bylaw. You can state your opinion. We can maybe adjust some things in the bylaw moving forward in the second draft, but there's no vote for that one, essentially.
But the one you care about the most
is zoning, exactly.
No, perfect. Well, thank you. Looking forward to seeing this.
We give you a month to digest the meat of the documents. Yes, because we can't hear you otherwise. Go ahead.
My name is Marion Constantine, and I'm usually in communication with my Zone 2 Michael representative. Anyhow, I'm not going to talk about what I wrote to him, but something. In none of the plans do we see one single car. The cars are not going to go away, and if you're going to these places that will be revised, where are we going to park? Because senior citizens like me or even younger are not going to go to the IGA carrying our groceries on a bicycle or maybe even getting on a bus, off a bus, walking. You know, we need thoughts about the car. And secondly, a lot of the things you mentioned are for the future, but for the present. For instance, Caldwell Strip. Is that going to stay that way for the next 20 years? And, okay.
We'll answer
So
them in
there are things that can be done in interim to ameliorate the appearance. And by the way, I think that we do have beautiful parks, we have beautiful flowers, we have absolutely gorgeous greenery. A lot of it is thanks to Dida Berku. Although I have a bone to pick with her, I find Dida has become like Madame Laplante. Not Laplante, what's her name? The Montreal mayor.
Mayor Plante, yes.
It is Laplante. Well, okay. So pushing this agenda of changing a terrific Côte Saint-Luc with lots of space and airspace, and I would like to see more trees, which I think Dida started. So anyway, I'd like to know if you're going to do something about some of these areas that look very dilapidated.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll start with the cars. So,
I'll stay here because I can hear you better.
okay, so we know Côte Saint-Lucers, and we know Côte Saint-Lucers love their cars, and we know that no one's gonna, some people, maybe young people, will probably change modes, and if there's a slick tramway in the middle, some might take that downtown. But we know Côte Saint-Lucers love their cars, and there are appropriate times for cars. We're not Plante. So, for example, in the mall redevelopments, above the ground, it'll be nice, lovely, you can walk around. Underground is all the parking. There's parking underground with an elevator, so you can get up, not be weathered on.
Excuse me, well, they're going to be charged like the
No.
Royal Mount?
No.
Convoluted.
So remember when I said one of the overarching themes is affordability? We are not Louis Vuitton here. So there will be parking, yes. It will be underground, so it doesn't take up, so you don't come so that's one thing. And also in terms of seniors, like one of the things that we see all the time is that our seniors want to drive. They feel like they have to drive, and their independence depends on it because you need to. We force you to do that. Yeah. But when you look at Cavendish is a terrible street to cross. We have so many seniors who are within walking distance of it that literally are like, I'm not crossing Cavendish because they were afraid, right? Because it's so wide. And so these are the kinds of things that we want to make it so that if you want to take your car, you can take your car. Mm-hmm. But if you want to walk, we'll make it safe and you feel comfortable and pleasant for you to do it. So within the green space, so for example, we have here's City Hall, and across the street is what will be the mall development, and then Trudeau Park is down there. What we want to do is to connect all these places by pleasant walking. So you can get your book at the library, walk, have a coffee with your friend, go to a program, and it's all pleasant. It's not pleasant now. It's not. So the second question you had was Caldwell. So there are many points in the city that are less attractive. Some on Westminster, some Caldwell. Yes, those areas like Caldwell, we have visions for it to make it better. Yes. Because it's just not reaching its potential as a place.
It's very dirty, the whole area.
Yeah, so we want to add value. Caldwell is one of those places. Thank you.
It was interesting that you were saying that this is a plan for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the demographics of Côte Saint-Luc and environs, if you can say that, some of us may not be around in 20 years from now, due to a natural situation. Mm-hmm. So, is this being planned basically for future generations, without it taking into consideration anything that can be of help to people of senior generation at this very moment? And my second question is, I don't think I heard anything, unless I'm mistaken, about Cavendish, not crossing Cavendish, but Cavendish. I think Dita mentioned it in introductory remarks very briefly, but I don't think there's anything in the report. Now, I can tell you I've lived in Côte-Saint-Luc for a few years. Before that, I was living in Côte-Saint-Luc, and I know the city councilors there very, very well. And one of them recently told me that as far as they know, this was in confidence, I'm not mentioning who told me, that Cavendish will never happen. Never happen for various reasons, for the cost, and especially if you want to dig underground, it's 10 billion. If you want to go around the size like Robert Libin first proposed 20 years ago, for various reasons it will never happen. To Valerie Pont, who says, we're going to do it, but never saying when or how, just say we're going to do it. So I'd like to know, how is Cavendish in any part of the plan, and if it is, can there be a specific timeline? Is there a specific timeline, or there's no timeline, just a nice wish for the future, but may or may never happen?
So I'll answer the easier question first, which is not the Cavendish Extension one, but in terms of seniors. So Côte-Saint-Luc seniors are 29-point-something% of our population, and we're in the process of working towards the age-friendly city designation. This whole plan is not necessarily for just 20 years from now. The whole reason we're doing this is to make it age-friendly on top of everything else. So affordable housing is something seniors need now. They don't need it 20 years from now. They need it now. They need to have parks that are not just dedicated to children, so they have places to go also. And the parks have to be comfortable and have bathrooms and have shade so that people can meet their friends. There is the whole issue of social isolation, which is something that we saw in the pandemic. It literally, it was such a, it's not that we didn't know that people lived alone, it's just that the literally no lift, no life problem that occurs in Côte-Saint-Luc is something that we're trying to correct. So the whole thing has had seniors at the back of our mind the entire time. Like our whole Smart Cities project showed a whole bunch of things, which I was also involved in. So the seniors are taken care of not in the 20-year span, but sooner. Yeah, the second person's murder. Yes, complete that, and then we'll get to Cavendish Extension.
Also, when we say the plan is a long-term plan for the next 20 to 25 years, it's going to reach its full fruition in 20 to 25 years. But there are targets, like I said, there are targets in this plan that there could be a 5-year time frame for that specific target. And that could be, for example, implementing a bike path on X street. It could be, I don't know, redeveloping one park into basically renewing one park because the playground is old, for example. That could be done in a specific time frame. Not everything is in 25 years. So some of those interventions can include universal accessibility and other things that help seniors, I would say. Help everybody, but the question was targeted to senior population.
So we'll get into Cavendish Extension, since apart from this project, the Cavendish Extension has been the preoccupation of myself, Councillor Burku, Mayor Brownstein, and Urban Development Director Charles Senecal. So I'll give it to you straight. We have no control over the Cavendish Extension. We are consulted plenty about it, but ultimately, apart from it's Montreal's decision, Montreal can't afford to pay for it, so basically we need the MTQ to want to. As if some of you follow along on our activities, we have been constantly, I'll call it, not badgering, but borderline, when they released Namur Hippodrome, and we're like, where's Cavendish Extension? Where's Cavendish Extension? Where's Cavendish Extension? Hammer, hammer, hammer. Like this is something that I don't, in our vision, it's absolutely open, but the fact is we don't need it to be open to carry out the vision. Is it dead? Well, certainly at the surface of it, the notion of having cars on it is dead for now, which we are also fighting. But if you look at the Plan d'Urbanisme de Montréal, which is that 1,200-page document I told you about, Cavendish is in it. It's in all of it, right? They have a tramway going from not only Namur Hippodrome, but north-south all the way from Saint-Laurent to Lachine, which is something that, frankly, the city of Montreal needs, the whole island needs. So they have a tramway. They have the REV bike path from top to bottom. They have the Corridor Vert, which is the one along the hydro line. So even in Montreal's own plans, they have a version of the Cavendish Extension, which is basically tramway based and active transit based. So is it the dream that our city has? Not exactly. Is it dead? Not exactly. They're after low-hanging fruit, which involves Jean Talon, which is not going to change the island in many ways. I won't get into this very deeply because I can go on and on about it for 200 hours, as can Councillor Burku, but that in essence is it. So it's not dead, but I would hardly call it living. Sign the petition. Yes, there's a petition. Elizabeth Prass put out a petition to push the city of Montreal, well, the Quebec government, to basically force Montreal to honor the cessation agreement, which was from 2017. So part of it was, you must build Cavendish Extension in order to get this land. We want to make them hold to it. Go on.
Extension in the discussion, but I think everybody knows that the Hippodrome was given for $1, and they were supposed to build a Cavendish Extension, and it was supposed to happen that way. Now there's this petition where we're basically asking them and Elizabeth Prass is pushing for it, is to stop them thinking of they're going to finance, because all these projects get financed. They get money from the federal government and the provincial government. So why should the federal and the provincial government fund projects when there's been a complete breach? They got the Hippodrome for $1 under the condition they were supposed to do the Cavendish Extension. So that they don't do the Cavendish Extension, why should the federal government or the provincial government give them any money towards any of their projects? That's number one. So I don't say it's dead. We also see Royalmont's been built. Yeah, they came up with an overpass to the metro where people, I don't know if they're going to shop at Louis Vuitton and take the metro, but they also need cars. They need cars, and so does the Hippodrome need cars, and so does the Carrie Square development need cars. And if they're going to allow all these developments to take place, then they're going to need some other ways to get there. Otherwise, nobody's going to succeed. All these projects are going to fail. So eventually, I think, if we keep on building, they also have to have a way to get there. So those are the two issues that we see. But please do sign the petition. If you haven't signed the petition, share it with your friends. I wrote an email to Andrew Lufty today saying, you better make sure that all of your retailers sign the petition and make sure every one of their employees sign the petition, because you want Royalmont to succeed. Sign the petition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where is it on? Is it on our website, Daryl? It's yeah. Yes. Yeah. Who is next? Come to the microphone.
I guess it's me.
It's you.
My name's Herschel Mitchell. I've lived in Côte-Saint-Luc for about 40 years now, and now I live on Cavendish.
Okay.
I have concerns about the Cavendish extension. Not that I'm necessarily against the idea, but it's talked about as though the city of Côte-Saint-Luc is so desperate to have this Cavendish extension that in the end, no matter what's proposed, the city will agree to it, whether it's an expressway going right up and down Cavendish. It seems to be what people want. There was some discussion about whether it should be one lane of traffic in each direction or 2 lanes. Like, I think of the overpass into Montreal West along Westminster as a very practical kind of thing, which is 1 lane, and it allows us to get back and forth. But I think even Mayor Brownstein wants 2 lanes in each direction.
No.
And
yeah, I'll tell you.
Maybe I should
finish your question, and I will
won't
happily
get
answer
into,
it.
But I would like to think that the city would be very concerned about what the Cavendish extension is going to look like if it eventually gets built, that it doesn't destroy Cavendish, and that whole area could still, I live on Cavendish now, so I wouldn't want it to be turned into an expressway, but I'm not sure that most people really care, since most people don't live on Cavendish. But I'm not sure really what this part of the plan about the Cavendish extension is. So that's
Okay,
my
so
concern.
let us set the record straight right now, because so first of all, even if in the, let's say, the old plan, right, from 2022, where it was all on track and they submitted the proposal to the BAP, we would never have allowed trucks, for example, to go on Cavendish. Like it was never more at that time than 2 lanes. Now it's definitely, well, now it's no lanes in the Montreal mind, but the position, the official position of the city of Côte-Saint-Luc is that have your bike pass. Yes, we want the tram. Give us 1 lane. Give us a lane, because we know we don't want this to be to carry 2, right? Côte-Saint-Luc, we go to the Côte-Saint-Luc is a quiet suburb. We do not need to be the throughway for everybody else, right? So it's never been in our vision to have multiple lanes to carry. It's awful. We very much care about what it would look like. Like our whole, again, we don't want it to be to carry. To carry is ugly and unpleasant and awful. So there's no scenario in which it would become an expressway under like no circumstance. None.
Okay,
Don't worry.
There's a whole range of things it could be between to carry and just tramways and bicycle paths. So anyways, I'm just trying to express my concern.
Perfect.
That there are a lot of people who cross to carry, live near to carry, and want to get from one side to the other.
Cavendish.
And Cavendish,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
And I hope that the concerns of all those people will be taken into account, and not just, we need the Cavendish extension, whatever it is.
Oh, no.
We'll just
So
take it because
in
we're
our
desperate.
No. In our city, in our PPU, the specific plan for the city center, which is literally where we are sitting right now, the whole goal is to make it much more convivial, right? Like Cavendish is already very wide for a cul-de-sac, so it's to make it easier to cross. It's to make it nicer on either side. So the goal is to make Cavendish nicer, not worse.
Sure, just yesterday, I mean, people speed down
Oh, yes.
between Mackle and the end. It's like a speedway half the time.
Mhm.
It's 3 lanes. People are going, I don't know, 70, I don't know.
Oh, yes. We are highly aware. Yes, as are the police.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Lisa Miller, and I'm here as a citizen tonight and not an employee. I just had a question. Councillor Brook, who touched on it, and I just wanted a little more information because it sounded quite interesting. It also depends on the, say, generosity of others. She touched on the possibility of train stations.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the beautiful rail yard that we'd love to go somewhere else. What is the likelihood of having a train station just because we'd like it? Does there seem any will on the other side to say, oh, that's a good idea? We might be willing to play ball? Just curious.
So I was just telling my colleague today of how this night is like the 10-year accumulation of what we've been working on. So in answer to your question, yes, we've met with EXO not once, not twice, I think 3 times. They did a feasibility study of whether there could be train stations. So where we'd like them is one behind the Côte-Saint-Luc Shopping Center. So if you picture Côte-Saint-Luc Shopping Center, there's this triangle of land which is kind of no man's land. There's hydro wires, there's a bunch of trees, and then train tracks, right? So there's a perfect place for a train station right there, because so the way the geography works, it's the Saint Jerome line. It passes by Métro du Parc and literally doesn't go anywhere until Montreal West, right? What happens is, according to EXO, everybody gets off at Parc Metro. They leave the train half empty as it zips along to Montreal West, passing us by so we could wave at everybody else who has transit except us. EXO did their studies, and they figured that this would, I want to say, complement the empty trains that they have coming from the earlier part of the island of Montreal. So yes, it is feasible. It's even in, they couldn't put the Côte Saint-Luc one in their plan because the Plume has nothing to do with Côte Saint-Luc's direct territory. But you'll see even in the Montreal plan, they have one at Carry Square to have that whole Namur area be multimodal, because people want to get to, for example, Concordia, the Loyola campus. So yes, oh yes, we've been in talks with EXO. It is feasible, it is doable. We are pressuring the RTM. We have put it in the CMM plan, but it's not that, unlike Cavendish Extension, is much more possible, quicker. The train line's already there. The investment is just literally building the station and having them rejig a bit of the lines, because CP owns the lines, and CP runs everything, so they have to make sure they have the lines free. But yes. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I came a little late, so sorry if this was covered in the first 20. You guys mentioned density a lot. How many people are we expecting to add to the city in the next 5 years, 10 years? If Cavendish doesn't open, what does that do to traffic, and is this part of your vision?
Do you want to answer? Do you want me to answer? Okay. So you should know that 2,500 residents have come to Côte Saint-Luc just since the last census. So the anticipated growth of Côte Saint-Luc is about, let's say, 4,000 households over the whole territory. Some people live alone and some have families on that. So say over the next 20 years, I would expect about 8,000 new residents, perhaps. So yes, we'll have more residents, but they won't all be in cars. One of the reasons why we have traffic is that we force you to get in your car to do anything. So the whole reason we're having all these convivial neighborhoods is so that those who don't have to. Do you want to add to my, go ahead.
In terms of residential density, because now we're talking about population density, there are requirements. I don't know if you were here in the part where I explained the hierarchy of regional, like the CMM and the agglomeration. So as I mentioned during that answer to the question, there's minimum density, like residential density thresholds that we need to respect in order to comply with the agglomeration plan. And the agglomeration plan has to respect the ones that are set by the CMM. So we are obligated in a certain measure in all measure actually, to respect those. When we redevelop a property, or when a property is redeveloped, it has to have a certain amount of dwellings per hectare, depending on the surface area of the property that's being redeveloped. So that's how it works. It's not entirely our decision most of the time.
Are there any other questions? Go ahead. Microphone. Bring it down a little.
Yeah, I didn't come for this, but where are you putting 8,000 residents? Like, where are you building?
Well, for example, if you take any of the mall redevelopments, right? So the largest surface area is the Quartier Cavendish across the street. And then there's Carry Square. And then there's the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. So that's like, say, the main...
So we're going to get rid of like the IGA?
No. Oh, whoa, no. So how any of these developments would work. So first of all, we need these community services. We need service de proximité, right? So how it would work, for example, in either of the malls that have an IGA, so excluding Carry Square for a minute, so just Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center, what they would do is build a new IGA first before they get rid of the old one. So if you're a resident, it would be a seamless transition from this one to that one, but it would all be in the same place. So no, we can't. We must have pharmacies and grocery stores and all the things that our residents need.
Right.
No, there's no.
We already made them all smaller, and you built homes. So where, like, I don't.
No, because we'd have the commercial on the ground floor, and then we build above it.
Oh, so kind of like on Saint-Luc Road. Like,
A little nicer.
on a-
Little nicer.
Okay.
No, because what they do is they have like a
Yeah,
commercial, and then in your face,
Right.
we'd set the top back a little bit so it
so
doesn't
in between
feel
Saint-Luc Road and what TMR projects were.
nicer.
Okay.
But yes,
Here,
above.
I have full faith that Saint-Luc will do something really nice.
good.
You keep your cities nice, you updated our parks, you decorated our light poles, you put beautiful flowers. So this 20-year plan, I hope I'm alive to see it, but I have faith in you. I have faith
Excellent.
in you. But the reason why I'm here today,
Okay.
and I apologize, and it might not be for you, I don't, my last meeting was probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
So is that my district, Councillor Zita, invited me here because I couldn't go to her meeting on the 18th.
Okay.
Previous engagement. So my zoning is more pertinent to today versus your 20-year plan.
Okay.
And I apologize to everyone. Tell everyone. But mine is concerning the zones that are disappearing with respect to your temporary shelters, which we call
Okay.
depots.
Okay.
And back probably in 2018, when we did this voting and I was involved in getting my district to not having tempo. Last year when I happened to be driving home and I'm like, huh, there's tempos in my area. How did that happen? Was unaware of this pilot project that was going on. I don't know. And people were allowed to put up tempos because it was a pilot project. I asked you to keep me in the loop of what was going to happen for the fall, for the upcoming year. So Ida just communicated to me saying that the zones are going away and all of Saint-Luc could have tempos.
Okay. So
wait, I'm not finished.
Okay.
So
Go
my
ahead.
question is we went in 2018, I went to my various neighbors, I got my petition, I won my area, there were other areas that won. We were told they did this because you didn't want to spend the money on a referendum. I don't know what's involved in that. And we got our no tempos. Now I understand it's because one of the reasons you're getting rid of them is because you can't police them. But just in my little area, the two people that I know of who had these tempos, one abused the rules, quite frankly, and the other one had his tempo up until well into the summer. So I don't know how you could police, you couldn't police it. How are you going to police a whole city? And it boggles my mind. It's like I gave you telling you do things to beautify our city. These are an eyesore. I don't think they're safe. There's lots of issues with tempos, and I don't know how that the last after in 2000. So this was 2018, March of 2019, as the winter was coming to an end, or I don't know when you guys sent out a survey. 59% of people know I'm against allowing tempos in my area. So how do you go from the zones to getting rid of the zones? I don't get it.
we're not getting rid of zones. There are zones.
Or
They're just not the same
with
zones.
respect to tempos, that
Yeah.
the city's going to be allowed. And I have a question for you because I really do think, who do you guys compare our city to? When you're attracting to these new 8,000 residents, where are they coming from? Are these people that we're going to buy in Laval, Dollard, Hunsett? Who are these 8,000 residents? I can tell you that I told my boss today where I was going. He lives in TMR, and he goes, "Oh my God, you're going to be the next Laval." Is that who you're comparing? Well, to me, you're going to hurt our property. You're doing all this to increase our tax base and property values. These are going to decrease our property values, not increase my home or your home.
So
It's an eyesore.
I will leave you to answer this.
And I can tell you,
Juicy vigor.
I communicated
Let
with
him
the
out.
Hampstead mayor back in the day. I'm sure the mayor's changed since then. He said they would never do what Côte Saint-Luc is doing. So who are you attracting? You're not attracting Hampstead residents or children who maybe lived in Hampstead, can afford it, and maybe will come to Côte Saint-Luc. You're not West now, TMR. Who are these people?
So answer the property value question and then explain
Yeah.
the zoning changes.
So there's a lot of nuancing to bring to a lot of the things you said. the zones aren't disappearing. The zoning bylaw basically cuts the city out into different zones. And the problem with our existing zoning plan, basically the way the zones are cut out, is that it's kind of arbitrary. For example, there are two zones that are pretty much identical in what they allow that are right beside each other, and each zone is one building, and that's not very good practice. Usually for an entire street, you will want, not an entire street maybe because streets are long in Montreal, but for a certain block or 2 blocks, buildings typically will have the same characteristics, the same number of stories, with plus or minus 1 story, for example. Most of them will be commercial on the ground floor, residences above, or most of them will be single-family homes. So the zones aren't disappearing, they're just changing because there was a lot of illogical things, such as tempos being allowed on one side of the street and not on the other in some places. Well, a lot of people didn't do great work, and that's why we're revamping a lot of the bylaws to make it more practicable.
You revamp them, so you're saying, okay, the zones don't make sense, great. Okay, everyone could have tempos. How does that happen?
Oh.
Why not go back to the status quo of no tempos?
Listen, there's...
The last survey, not unless I missed it, said 59% doesn't want them.
So I think if you have a specific concern for the tempos issue in the public consultation, like we mentioned, if you have a particular point in the new zoning bylaw that you have problems with, you can always bring whoever you want your petition, and those people can sign against that specific point. But even before that, at the public consultation, if a lot of people are opposed to that, between the first and the second draft, we can make that adjustment so there's still place for changes. So if that many people have problems with tempos, there's still place for that.
So I just want to understand. So we're going into the 20, 24, 25 winter. And by the way, last winter, I think there was a record low snow. And I think that's what our trend is. So I don't even know why there's an importance to it. I was a home with 4 cars. I never even thought about it. You know what I mean? And I go, so for 24, 25, what are we going to see? Are you putting out something that everybody can have a template?
Well,
so whatever, let me
go ahead.
So first of all, whatever we had last year is, I want to say renewed, is being renewed this year. So
are you going to police it better?
They're not supposed to be up in the summer.
No, but I mean,
we could.
There was a gentleman where you put in, well, maybe it's your fault. When you talked about tempos, you put in the dimensions. So this one individual, and I remember talking with Dita, and I don't remember who else. 2018.
We're veering off from the master plan.
I understand, but
let's bring it back.
You know what? This is happening today.
Okay,
so my question is this one individual, because he has a small that was based on dimensions, and he put his tempo over his entire house, his stairway, his garage. I don't think is that the intent of Code Saint-Luc?
For stairways, no.
No. So why wasn't his taken down?
So let's look. You say, who is this for? Okay. Tempos are ugly. We all know. Everybody knows. Whoever has a tempo knows it's ugly. It's ugly. Okay. Who are they for? They're for our residents who literally have to shovel their driveways. This is not the West Island where the guy comes, blows the snow off, puts it on the side. This is a place where the guy comes with his pickup truck and his shovel, and if you don't have one, and they leave it and they dump it in the street, right? That's what they do. So the tempos are for our seniors who literally have trouble, and we want them to remain in their homes. They're for people who try to get out in the morning and they have their kids and it's chaotic and it's like, oh my God, I have to deal with this. It helps them. It helps our residents.
So I have actually 3 questions.
Sure.
My name is Johnny Columbus. I'm a resident of about 20 years. 15 of those years with the amazing Susie and Harvey, who's here as a B-Club.
District 8, represent. Yeah. Yes.
So
okay.
now I live just up the street. So my first question, my first question is, you talked a lot about private interests.
Right.
And I guess those mostly pertain to the commercial developments, the mall and everything else. There are some aspects that you mentioned about that are public interests, such as the overpass on Clanranald, or I think you said Parkhaven.
Right.
So my first question is, has there been any thought to the financing and the budgeting? Like how is that going to happen for those, call them public projects? Okay. The second question is, for those people who are particularly affected by the developments such as Cavendish Mall one. Is there going to be special consultations for those residents who live around the project, right? So they are more affected than others. And in specific, you're particularly, do you have any plans right now or more details about the Cavendish Mall project? Like, is
I
there more
couldn't
than
hear your
just-
last question. Your last one, the one you just said, because there was noise.
Oh,
Could you
for
say the
those-
last
for
one
those-
again?
For those residents who live around a particular project,
Right.
such as I do, I
Right,
live on
right.
Park Place, for example. Are we going to be specifically consulted, on the project itself, or are we part of just the general public who has to go through the steps as of October 21st, then November 20th, and everything else that you mentioned?
Okay, the financing of those, what we don't want is that our residents pay for this infrastructure, right? So in order to get subsidies or we want absolute developer contributions to infrastructure. If they're going to have density, then we want our residents to benefit straight up by them paying for maybe not everything, but certainly chunks of it. Whenever it crosses over, so for example, Clanranald, it's not just us that it impacts also, it's Montreal. Whereas the Côte-Saint-Luc Shopping Center one is definitely, we want to have the train station there, so there's, again, mutual benefit. We don't want Côte-Saint-Luc residents to pay for all this stuff. The idea is not to add to your burden. So that answers that question. In terms of anything, so we have no projects right now that are literally presented and waiting. Like, that's not how this works. We have our vision. You'll see what it is if it's for the Calcé Cavendish. The PPU document, which he talked about, you'll look at it. For sure, I guarantee you that the district councillors will absolutely have you come and discuss this, right? Because they're ultimately the ones voting on it, and they absolutely care what you think, and so do we. So are you going to be specifically consulted? I won't speak for the councillors, but I can tell you they're very keen on making sure that all the people specifically who live around know what's going on, think it's, I'm going to say good, it is good, but the property values of the people who live around it will absolutely go up. I mean, every study that has shown that there is development of this walkable, nice kind, the properties around it thrive. So, just to say, okay,
I was talking more
okay.
about peaceful enjoyment of our house.
So the last one, I put the word plans, but
Any specific plans about
Oh.
Project Cavendish, specifically that exact.
so the closest we have now is actually the thing that he had on the screen. We have the PPU, which I will flag as something when we, on October 21st, release the documents. There's a whole one just about this part of town, which I urge you to read. So you'll see it. But there's no like, oh, look, this is the presentation, because we are not the builders. They will have to conform to our plan.
Like we're putting out the framework. In other words, their plans will have to respond to that framework.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Circa 35 years ago, there was a plan to develop Meadowbrook into housing. That's died. Any future plans to develop green space or housing for the Côte-Saint-Luc portion of Meadowbrook?
So for sure, not development, not residential development under any circumstance. The position of the city of Côte-Saint-Luc is to keep it as the zoning is now, which is recreation green, or what is it, Dita, the specific zoning? Recreation
conservation.
Do you want to speak at the microphone? She knows the most of anybody. She is the appropriate person to answer.
So what is your question? You want to preserve it, or you want to develop it, or what is it that you?
I'd rather see it developed in green space or housing.
Right. Well, green space, but it is a green space.
Well, it's not accessible.
Right. So it's owned. Right. It's owned by a private owner who's operating a golf course on both sides. And in 2001, just before we merged, the city of Côte-Saint-Luc adopted a bylaw that basically froze the zoning, basically said that the zoning should stay the way it is, which is a golf course. And pursuant to that, the property developer sued the city of Côte-Saint-Luc for $30 million in 2002. And that case stayed dormant until 2012, for about 12 years. Then it was revived, and we're still in court. And every once in a while, they raise the stakes, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. It keeps bouncing back and forth. They sued the city of Montreal for $40 million for the Lachine side, and they lost that case. Now they're suing the agglomeration because of the master plan of the island of Montreal. The schéma d'aménagement recognizes that both sides, both the Lachine side and the Côte-Saint-Luc side, are recreational green space, grand espace vert récréatif. So they can do all kinds of activities on it. And that's also in court. And that's where we're at. Unfortunately, it's making its way slowly through the courts. But while I'm at this, so I hope that answers your question. Okay. So right now, it is a very important green space. As you know, it filters the air. I mean, it has a lot of advantages for the city of Côte-Saint-Luc, there's no question, even as a golf course. I wanted to answer the question of the gentleman in the back, because we have spoken to the developers, obviously, in the past. And in both cases, both in the case of the Côte-Saint-Luc Shopping Center and in the case of DeCarry Square, and I know that the owner was here tonight, there is a strong willingness to participate in the infrastructure that's needed in order to develop these mobility hubs, as we put it, be it a train station or an underpass. Even the owner from DeCarry Square was approached by Namur Hippodrome. They suddenly decided that the developer on the DeCarry side is going to finance the Clanranald, underpass. And they put it in their proposal for the Namur Hippodrome. I said, wait a minute. First of all, it's, he's on Côte-Saint-Luc territory. So, but there is this willingness, obviously, and this is the whole notion, right? It's not like, who's going to live here? It's not that's not the question we have to ask. We have to ask, how are we going to face the future, right? The status quo is not sustainable. I cannot emphasize this enough. The owners of the malls are not able to maintain their malls in the state that they're in. Their evaluations are declining. The contribution that they make in terms of taxes are not increasing at the same rate that everybody here is increasing in taxes. We're all getting increases in taxes, but the malls are not getting the same increase. And the reason they're not getting the same increase is because their evaluations are declining, and we cannot, our tax rate is very high, and in the commercial, you could talk to any property owner in Côte-Saint-Luc, they'll tell you our commercial tax rate is very high, but we cannot go beyond. So by allowing the status quo to stagnate, to say, oh, no, we don't want to do anything, we cannot sustain the level of service. It's clear. We have to spend over the next 3 years, our Department of Engineering is telling us, and Finance, we have to spend $15 million on the Côte-Saint-Luc underpass, right? We share it with the City of Montreal. They come up with the plans, and they're telling us, the City of Côte-Saint-Luc, you've got to contribute $15 million. Now, we only spend $3 million a year on roads. So how are we going to afford to put in 15, just giving you an example. Now, if we want to redo our roads, we want to do our lead pipes, we want to do all our water infrastructure, we need more than $3 million a year. We need $10 million. right? We need it. And so in order to maintain a proper level of taxation, the city of Côte-Saint-Luc, we cannot develop on the Meadowbrook, it's in court. We cannot develop in the yards. The yards, they're not going anywhere. So that's all we have. We have 3 major malls, and if they are willing, that's why it's a concours de circonstances that is very opportune for the city of Côte-Saint-Luc. It's a tremendous opportunity. We are lucky that the AGLO, the PMAD, the Quebec government, they're all forcing us to update our plans. And we have 3 major developers that want to do it. And they want to do it in a way that's constructive, that is going to be positive, and it's going to be benefit for all the taxpayers of Côte-Saint-Luc, for the existing taxpayers of Côte-Saint-Luc. You right now, you live in the Park Place, I understand, right? You have an 8-story building right next door. Okay? You're not living next to a bungalow. It's an 8-story building. So when he shows you, when Patrick shows you the scale down, you know, there are 20-story buildings on Cavendish. We're not reinventing anything, right? So we're not going to put the 20-story building next to the single-family dwellings, the ones on California. But clearly, if there's already an 8-story building on the avenue, I mean, you can understand the logic, right? So we're gonna figure it out. They're working on the plans. You see how hard they're working. I'm so proud of this whole group, this whole team, Melanie included, and our Department of Engineering. They really put a lot of thought into it. And we, as leaders of the city, we have to think about the future and how we can build it up so that it's good for everybody. And it's unfortunate, and with this I just want to close this point, that we weren't able to push through the Cavendish extension yet, okay? Because we were very close. We were 2022, we were there. We were at the BAP. I don't know what got into their crazy heads. I have no idea, but suddenly they pulled the plug and they said, you know what, we don't want to do Cavendish anymore. We want to do Jean Talon. I said, what does Jean Talon have to do with it? Has nothing to do with it. But I can tell you that Elizabeth Prass, the mayors, they're all meeting with the ministers. We'll get a breakthrough. And it is in the plan. There is a rapid transit corridor down Cavendish. And now they're telling us, oh, we'll open up to Côte-Saint-Luc through Mackle. I said, Mackle, are you dreaming? What are you smoking? But they want to do something. So I have a strong conviction, that once we show what the city of Côte-Saint-Luc is capable of, once we show how we're going to redevelop the Côte-Saint-Luc shopping center, because you know Robert Burns is going up 20 stories. City of Montreal is going to put up 20 stories at Robert Burns. So they're going to do it and we're not? Really? And that's, when they do it, we're going to get a train station. We're working with Dean Mandel from Kahila. They're going to help us. So everything has to work. We are interfacing with the Côte-Neige and DG on Côte-Saint-Luc Road. We're interfacing with Côte-Neige and DG at Vizina and Décarie. We will have a breakthrough. And this whole plan is definitely predicated on moving forward with all these mobility options, because we need mobility. There's no question. But, and I know I said I'm going to stop, but you know what? This morning at 7 o'clock, this morning at 7 o'clock, I was out in the streets. And I don't usually go out. I don't work on a 9 to 5, so I'm not out at 7 in the morning. You know, there's a lot of people riding bicycles in Côte-Saint-Luc. It's unbelievable. At 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, I saw a lot of people riding bicycles. We're moving forward, and it's actually happening. Down Bailey, down Cavendish, I saw a lot of young people, a lot of people, you know, moving about in the different ways. So I think there will be a breakthrough, and I think that this master plan is going to help us and is going to help give us the leverage we need. We need to be, big players at the table, and I think this is going to give us that leverage. That's what I think.
What she said. Are there other questions? If not, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Please stay tuned.